Have you ever been offered a humiliation so complete that accepting it would have meant the end of everything you believed about yourself? Have you ever stood in a public place, children beside you, and been told in plain words that the life you had been waiting for was never coming? That the best you could hope for was to serve the woman who replaced you? Have you ever said no to that with nothing in your hands and nowhere to go, and meant it completely? This is the story of a woman named May, a woman who said no in a train station in 1976 with two daughters and two bags and a recipe in the bottom of one of those bags. And what she built from that no eventually fed a city and crossed an ocean. Stay with me until the end. This one is going to stay with you. In a quiet village in the north of China, there lived a woman named May who had been waiting for 7 years. Not passively. May was not a passive woman. She had been raising her two daughters, Ba, who was 8, and Pang, who was 6, in her mother's home, while her husband Chen worked far away in the city. She had been sending him part of whatever small income she could find. She had been explaining his absence to Ba in ways that did not break the child's trust in her father. She had been a nurse before the girls were born, and she carried that discipline into everything: the household accounts, the girls' schooling, her mother's health. Chen had married May against his family's wishes. That fact had never left the room in their marriage. His mother had made her feelings about May clear in the way certain women do. Not with cruelty exactly, but with a consistent refusal to accept her as real. May had managed this for 7 years with the patience of someone who understands that time is supposed to resolve these things. Then word came. Chen had found a path forward. He was settling in a new place, and he wanted his family to come. On the last evening before departure, May's family gathered. Her mother, her sister, the girls. They made dumplings together, her mother's favorite dish, the one that had been made in that kitchen for as long as anyone could remember. Everyone agreed that May's dumplings tasted better than anyone else's. Her mother pressed a small piece of paper into her hand before she slept. A phone number for a cousin named Jin living in Hong Kong. "If you ever need help," her mother said, "reach out to her." May tucked it into the notebook she carried, the notebook full of her mother's handwriting. Recipes, measurements, small notes in the margins about what to adjust and when. She had carried that notebook since she was a girl. "You will always eat," her mother had told her once, "as long as you remember how to cook." She packed everything they owned into 2 bags. She took Ba and Pang to the train station the next morning with everything she had and everything she hoped for, which was still, despite 7 years of waiting, considerable. Chen was at the station. So was his mother. May saw the old woman's face before she heard a single word and understood that something was wrong. The mother looked at May the way she had always looked at her, with the expression of someone who has never considered you a permanent arrangement. But there was something else in it now, something that looked like the end of a long project finally arriving. The old woman did not waste time. A few years ago, she said, she had arranged for Chen to marry into a wealthy Thai family. He now lived in Thailand, managing his new wife's business. They needed a housemaid. If May wished, she was welcome to come in that role. May went completely still. She had not known, not one word of it. She had believed, genuinely, completely believed, that she and her daughters were finally going to build a life together. And now, in one quiet sentence in a public train station, with Ba holding her hand and Pang pressed against her side, that belief was simply gone. She looked at Chen. She did not look at his mother. She said, I will stand by you. I will stand by your family. I will work beside you and build beside you. And I will not complain about the years that have already passed, but I will not be a servant in another woman's house. Not for anyone. Take us to Hong Kong instead. We will both work. We will put the girls in school. We will make something from nothing. I have done harder things than that. We can do it together. She meant every word. She had never been more certain of anything. Chen looked at the ground, then at his mother, then at the ground again. He said he was sorry. And then he walked away with his mother, without looking back. Ba called after him. He did not stop. Pang did not fully understand what was happening, but she felt it. The way young children feel the temperature of a room change, and she pressed closer to May's side. May stood in that station with 2 children and 2 bags, and the specific silence of a woman who has just been given an answer she will spend the rest of her life building a response to. She did not fall apart in that station. Ba was watching. She took both girls by the hand and walked. She found a room in the city of Chongcha, unfamiliar streets, a different dialect, people who struggled to understand her when she spoke. She needed work immediately. She walked into a small shop run by an elderly couple, and because she could not make herself understood, she did something quietly brave. She took out a piece of paper and wrote 4 words, "I need a job." The old woman watched her, then smiled. She showed May how to assemble plastic flowers, a single demonstration. May watched once, understood completely, and was given the work on the spot. That night, May did not sleep. She assembled flowers through the dark. Everyone finished by dawn, delivered before the shop opened. She was paid, then told the flower work was finished. Her heart dropped for one moment, then lifted. A new batch had arrived. Dolls this time. She took the work without pausing. Again she worked through the night, but the next morning as she was preparing to deliver, Pang fell suddenly ill. Ba stepped forward. "You stay with her," she said. "I will take them." But Ba did not know the streets yet. She turned wrong somewhere and got lost. Time passed. Too much time. When May finally went to the shop herself, she learned Ba had already come and gone long ago. She ran home. Ba was there, safe, but when May raised her voice out of the relief of fear, Pang said quietly, "Ba got lost. She fell. She hurt herself." The anger left instantly. May pulled both daughters close and held them. A short while later, the elderly couple arrived with urgent news. Document checks. The police were moving through the area. May's papers had expired. She could not remain another hour. She had to leave. She reached into the notebook for the paper her mother had pressed into her hand. She called her cousin Jin. Then she packed what little she had, said goodbye to those kind strangers in a city she had barely started to know, and boarded a small boat with her daughters toward Hong Kong and an uncertain tomorrow. Hong Kong in those years was more developed than most surrounding cities, and so people poured in from everywhere, hoping for a better life. Jobs were scarce, living conditions crowded and difficult. Jin sorted out May's papers and brought her to a house packed with people, every room shared, every corner occupied. But the landlady, a woman named Hong who wore a blue apron every day and had a voice like gravel shifting, had a generous heart beneath the practical exterior. She gave May a room without asking for a single coin up front. "Take the first 3 months," Hong said. "Pay me when you can. The kitchen downstairs, use it whenever you need." May thanked her and carried her daughters inside. The next morning, she walked to a hospital. She had been a nurse before the girls were born, and it was the skill she was most certain of, the thing she had trained for and practiced and trusted. She walked in and asked about work. The answer was swift. New rules, No government positions for those who had come from outside Hong Kong. She walked out and did not stop walking, door to door, asking for anything. Then, outside a small restaurant, she saw a notice on the wall. She found the manager and looked at him directly. "I am strong," she said. "I can do anything you need." He took her to the back, a dishwashing position, open immediately. The conditions she would not have imagined for herself a year ago. Grime, smell, neglect accumulated over years of indifference. She said yes before he finished the sentence. Then, before she picked up a single dish, she cleaned the entire kitchen from top to bottom. And then she got to work. That evening she came home and told Bar, "I found a job. I leave every morning at 6. Make sure you get your sister to school on time." She had already enrolled them both. That one small thing felt like a victory. Hong, hearing the news, called Jin over. Jin was practical. A dishwasher's wage alone would barely cover rent, food, and 2 growing children. She mentioned that a woman in the building had diabetes and needed a daily injection every morning. Since May was a nurse, perhaps she could take that on. A little extra income. May agreed without hesitation, and so she rebuilt her days, quietly and relentlessly. Every morning at 4, she rose. She prayed first, a small, faithful ritual she had kept since childhood. Then she went to give the morning injection. Then straight to the restaurant to wash dishes until her hands ached. Then home to the girls. 6 months in, she heard about a third opportunity, tram cleaning through the night. She asked about it and was given the work. Now her days looked like this. Prayer at 4 in the morning, the injection, the restaurant, home to the girls in the afternoon, trams from late evening until the city slept. Sleep in whatever hours remained. She did not complain. She sent money home every month to her mother and sister, who had nothing without her. And she held it together in the hours the girls were watching, and let herself come slightly undone, only in the small window between their sleep and hers. The house became something unexpected, a community. Hong watched the girls when May worked nights. 2 young women also lived there, full of laughter and life. A retired man from a small rooftop room at the top of the building, called Uncle Dessert because he had once worked in pastry and still kept sweets to share with the children. He had appeared one evening when May apologized for bringing the girls to the rooftop, thinking she had intruded on his space, and simply smiled. "Come up whenever you like," he said, and he invited them all in. These were the people May had not known she needed. Not dramatic rescues, just small, consistent acts. A kitchen unlocked, a child watched, a light turned on in a corridor in the dark so she could see her way. Then one morning, while carrying dishes, May slipped and fell hard. She tried to rise. Her body refused. She finished the shift anyway. She did the tram cleaning that night anyway. She walked home through the dark streets, and when she reached the building, she climbed the stairs on her hands and knees. Her daughters found her. They called for Hong. Hong took her to the hospital. The diagnosis was a spinal fracture. No more heavy labor. Rest. May looked at the doctor and said, "Give me something for the pain. I have 2 children. If I do not work, they do not eat." She stayed a few days. Hong watched the girls. When May came home, she could barely move for weeks. By law, the restaurant owed her compensation for a workplace injury. The manager refused, called her greedy, said she was pretending. Then the tram company announced that workers from outside Hong Kong were no longer welcome. Her night job was gone in the same week. In a handful of days, she had lost every income she had built. No money coming in, not enough to feed her daughters. She went up to the rooftop one evening and stood at the edge for a long time. Then Pang appeared. Pang, who did not know what her mother was carrying, who just wanted to be near her, who began reciting a small, cheerful rhyme the way 6-year-olds recite rhymes, because they do not yet know which moments require them to be serious. May looked at her daughters' faces and stepped back from the edge. The girls asked what was wrong. May sat down with them. "I am tired," she said. "I feel like I am losing." Uncle Dessert had heard. He called the children over gently and said, "From now on I will make sure you are fed." May broke down. The gratitude was too large for any other response. Tears came and she did not stop them. He cooked for them that evening, warm, made with care, shared on the rooftop under the Hong Kong sky. As they ate, May asked him, "Where do you sell?" "At the harbour," he said, "in front of the ferry terminal. We set up every day by 6:30, fried chicken, fish balls, soup, but no one sells dumplings, and May," he looked at her directly, "you make the best dumplings I have ever tasted. This is your business. Start it." She did not hesitate. She sold her ring first. Then, through a lawyer, she finally recovered the compensation money the restaurant had refused to pay. The next day, Uncle Dessert took her to a second-hand market. They found a cart, old but solid. They bought everything she needed: meat, eggs, flour. The morning after, they arrived at the harbour before dawn. It was a complete failure. The people of that city had never seen dumplings before. They did not know what they were. May, still healing, still unsteady, could not find the voice to call out to them. Then the police arrived, and everyone scattered. The stalls were inside the terminal walkway, against the rules. Not a single dumpling had been sold. They moved to the market. May stood for hours, well into the night. Still nothing. When she finally looked down at her cart, the dumplings had spoiled. She lifted them one by one and dropped them into the bin, and then she wept, right there in the middle of that busy, indifferent street. All that preparation, all that hope, thrown away with the food. The last small light she had been holding on to was going out. She came home to find her daughters still awake. She sent them to bed. Then she sat alone in the dark. Hong noticed. She called May in for dinner, and over a quiet meal, she said something May needed to hear. "I started from nothing too," Hong said. "My husband left me just like yours left you. Today was your first day. No one succeeds on the first day. Keep going. I believe in you. And if you need me, put me to work. I will stand beside your cart and call every customer in with this loud voice of mine." In the middle of her worst days, May was surrounded by people who refused to let her fall. For that, she was quietly, deeply grateful. The next morning, she went back to the harbour. A group of school students wandered over, curious. She gave them a taste. Their faces changed. They praised it. Genuinely, enthusiastically, the honest reaction of young people who have no reason to be polite. Uncle Dessert watched from his cart, grinning wider than anyone. A crowd formed. Then the police arrived again. In the rush, one of May's pots hit the ground. The officer picked it up, handed it back to her, and told her to move along quickly. Days later, an elderly customer finished his dumplings and offered a quiet observation. "Good taste," he said, "but the skin is too thick. Make it thinner." She took those words home and tried again and again, each time bringing a plate to Hong, each time not quite right. Then she tried something from her own instinct. Salted water worked into the dough. She folded one, tasted it. This time it was perfect. Sales began to grow. Word spread through the neighborhood. Her dumplings had a reputation. Then, one afternoon, the local gang boss arrived with his men, looking for his cut. When one of his men moved toward Pang, something shifted in May. She reached for a knife. The boss went completely still. And then something crossed his face. Not anger, but recognition. His own mother. The same fire. The same love that would do anything to protect what was hers. He asked quietly for a plate of dumplings. He ate, then told his men to eat. He paid for everything, 20 plates, full price, then placed an order, 500 dumplings for his mother's birthday. May thanked him and got to work. When the police came again, a real enforcement sweep, carts loaded into vehicles, vendors detained, May spoke directly to the officer in charge. "Punish us," she said. "We accept that. But my daughter's school bags are caught in those carts. I sell food on these streets so my daughters can go to school, so they can become something. That is the only reason I am here." Her voice broke. The officer looked at her. He looked at all of them. These exhausted, ordinary people just trying to survive. He released everyone. And then he did something no one expected. He gave them official permission to sell at the terminal, properly and in order. That officer's name was Hua. He came back the next morning, not to enforce anything, but because word had reached him about the dumplings. He tried one, then another. He praised them. Then he said something that stopped May mid-breath. "I am from the same region you are," he said. "Back home, dumplings were a staple. You could not find them anywhere in this city." May looked up. "I am from there too," she said. Something passed between them. Quiet recognition. The comfort of a shared home neither of them could return to. He ordered a large parcel for his children, paid, and went on his way. The years that followed were not easy, but they were directional. The harbour operation grew. May hired help. She moved from a cart to a stall, from a stall to a kitchen space, from a kitchen space to a storefront. Hong came to see it one afternoon, stood outside reading the name above the door, her mother's name. A decision May had made one evening alone without planning it, and came inside and ate in silence. When she finished, she put her hands flat on the table. "Your mother would have understood this," she said. May said, "I know. That is why her name is on it." The factory came in the 7th year. A warehouse space she stood in alone the morning she signed the lease and felt something she could not name. Not pride, not fear, though both were present. She called Bar, who was now a teenager, keeping the production records in a notebook of her own. "Come and see this space," May said. "I want you to see it before we put anything in it." The product eventually crossed borders, a distributor at a trade fair, 3 countries within 2 years. The morning May saw a photograph of her packaging on a shelf in a country she had never visited, she sat with it for a long time before calling anyone. She thought about the train station, she thought about the notebook in the bottom of the bag, she thought about Uncle Dessert watching school children taste her dumplings for the first time, and grinning wider than anyone. She thought about Bar, 8 years old, turning the wrong way in a city she did not know and getting lost trying to help. There was always good food, her mother had said, wherever people were hungry enough to cook it. Her mother passed away in the 9th year of the business. May flew home for the funeral and stood at the edge of the small market where her mother had sold from a table for 40 years. And she understood with complete clarity that she had not built something new. She had carried something forward, the recipe, the stubbornness, the specific refusal to let a humiliation in a train station be the last word. None of that had started with her. She was a link in a chain that her mother had forged, and that Bar and Pang would extend further than May could see. She came home and put her mother's notebook in a glass frame above the kitchen door of the factory, not as a decoration, as a document. My friend, May's story is not really about dumplings. It is about a woman who was offered a role in someone else's story and said no in public with nothing behind her and meant it. And it is about the people who showed up in the years that followed, not to save her, not to carry her, just to give her 3 months on the rent, lend her a cart, taste something she made and tell her the truth about it, stand beside her in a market and call customers in with a loud voice. A few things worth holding on to. The moment May said no in that train station was not a plan, it was a refusal. She had nowhere to go when she said it, no job, no city, no safety net. Just 2 daughters and a belief that she was worth more than the role she had been assigned. That refusal became the foundation of everything. You cannot always see, in the moment you refuse something, what you are making room for. May could not see it, but she refused anyway. The people who helped May were not wealthy or powerful. Hong was a landlady who charged rent. Uncle Dessert sold sweets from a rooftop room. A retired couple in Chongcha gave her piecework and then quietly guided her to a boat when her papers expired. An officer did his job and then did something more than his job. None of them announced themselves as important. They just showed up consistently in small ways at the right moments. Pay attention to those people in your own life. They are rarer than they appear and more significant than they know. And the last thing, May never stopped improving the dumpling, even when sales were growing, even when the reputation was already there. The old customer who said the skin was too thick, she took that home and tried again and again until she found it. The discipline of refining what you are already good at, even when good enough would have been enough, is what separates something that lasts from something that fades. So here is what I want you to sit with today. Think about the moment in your own life, the train station, whatever form it took, where you were offered a version of yourself you could not accept, and ask yourself whether the refusal, as hard as it was, made room for something. Not immediately, not without cost, but eventually. If May's story moved you, hit that like button. Drop a comment. What is the one thing you have refused to become, even when it would have been easier to accept it? Share this with someone who is standing in their own train station right now and needs to be reminded that no is sometimes the most powerful word available. Subscribe to The Turning Point because every week there is a story here worth keeping. May was offered a housemaid's life and said no with nothing in her hands. She built an empire from a notebook and a cart with a wheel that pulled to the left, and the name above the door of her factory is her mother's. Your no can become something too. But first, you have to mean it.